It's crazy how this just keeps going on, man. Really, this is nuts. How does this keep happening?
Federal officials have not disclosed exact numbers, but there is broad reporting about migrants being swept up during recent immigration raids.
It is a scary proposition for tens of thousands of hard-working migrants, especially those.
So, as ICE agents
hard-working oh my God.
New York City looking for dangerous individuals and gang members, they can wind up at pretty much any business. And while an alleged raid at one of Amazon's warehouses was probably shocking to everyone inside, immigrant advocates are outraged, saying workplace raids have nothing to do with deporting the high-level criminals ICE says they're after. Unless, of course, those criminals are doing whatever they can
Sounds like a fine to me. I mean, how is it that somebody is going and you know that they're even admitting we're hiring illegal fucking aliens to work at the business? How the fuck is this guy not immediately fined at least? Isn't it illegal? It is.
Entrepreneurs, we're working hard. We don't have any criminal records. We're following the rules. We're making the community a better place, a safe place.
How do you make the community a better place or a safer place? That's not even true. Number one, you have a criminal record by the fact that you have a record at all. The record that you have in the United States is foundational around you being a criminal. What do you mean? Number one. Number two, also, what about these companies that are taking advantage of it as well? We follow the rules. Just like somebody breaks into your house, but they take their shoes off whenever they get inside.
You're sweeping up a lot of them. All illegal entrants. Do you really believe they're the same?
No, absolutely not. And that's why we're prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats. And we have given ICE instructions. When you look for the bad guy and you find others with them, you will arrest them because they're in the country in violation.
That's an AOE. That's an AOE damage.
Law.
AOE effect. 400,000 people.
So an alleged ICE raid took place at an Amazon warehouse with a manager at the facility warning it might not be the last. And even though the news outlet on this says they can't confirm all the details, what nobody in New York wants to admit is that if ICE does go and raid a warehouse and they take dangerous criminals and get them out of the country, they've done everyone in there a favor. Because according to the border czar, ICE doesn't just raid random businesses. And if ICE gets a tip that a criminal is hiding at or being aided by a business, they may locate individuals in the company of that criminal.
They gotta start finding these businesses and charging the business owners. If the business owners know that they're hiring illegals, you gotta charge them. You have to do it. Because that's what's gonna make this shit stop. Why is this shit
People who've got ties to them are assisting them and could also be dangerous. And the reason critics are so upset about this is there are over 400,000 people unlawfully living in New York City, many of whom have jobs that these businesses rely on. Leading defenders of illegal immigration to claim ICE's enforcement actions could crash the local economy. As these immigrants are taking jobs, Americans an extreme statement for sure, as one has to wonder if it's possible zero legal New York residents will work in air-conditioned convenience stores or allegedly at places like Amazon, especially when a 2022 study revealed 17% of workers under the age of 24 want jobs but can't find them. And that brings us to the real reason why workplace raids are an important part of keeping the country both safe and prosperous, allowing a massive number of people to illegally live in your city and get jobs there just empowers the criminals who connect them with these jobs in the first place. We're talking gang members and the businesses that prey upon these folks, who even though they claim they're making the world a better place.
It's not me on his hat.
are doing no such thing when they underpay and exploit their workers. Now, of course, it's very hard to blame individual workers for taking jobs that are offered to them if they're here and need to feed themselves. But the businesses hiring these people instead of Americans are preying on their desperate situation, taking advantage of people who have zero workplace protections, like guaranteed minimum wage and labor safety laws. Plus, as you're about to see,
and it's also they don't have bargaining power, because if somebody wants to quit their job because they're being mistreated, there's the problem that now maybe this person can call ICE on you because they have your name. They might know where you live. That's another big risk.
Someone gets an illegal job at a legitimate-looking business, they're often only able to do it with the help of criminals who've embedded themselves in sanctuary cities. So here we've got a whole bunch of local businesses. Some are part of a larger corporate entity, others are small independent shops. They might only have 1 or 2 locations. And according to the news, some of these independent places have admitted to hiring people who are unlawfully in the country. And some of these individuals have figured out how to get jobs at larger corporate chains that might have a more thorough employment vetting process. And now workers at pretty much every business are on edge, thinking that at any moment ICE agents could walk in the door looking for somebody who's dangerous.
Isn't it criminal to hire somebody and know that they're illegal? I mean, I'm sure mistakes happen. Somebody uses false information. They get a job somewhere. The business owner isn't at fault. But that's not the norm.
So this woman and her husband, they seem like nice, hardworking people, but they're wrong. They're not playing by the rules because it's illegal to hire people off the books. That's a crime, and legitimate businesses don't do that. And not only does hiring people off the books empower criminals, they're not making their community better, because anyone illegally working at their air-conditioned restaurant or convenience store has a job that a law-abiding resident of that community can't have. But before we get into how people might be able to illegally get jobs at a place like Amazon or Target, it's important to understand how any business illegally employing people hurts their community in ways many people don't even realize. Because companies who do this, they don't just take away legitimate jobs from legitimate legal residents of their community, they also deprive legitimate...
Isn't it crazy for us to think about the fact that this is even a conversation? That we have like such a huge subset of people that think that it's somehow a moral and good thing to let a bunch of people illegally come over into the country and work under the table, as if this is somehow this is like the morally good thing. Because like you take a step back, right, and you really think about this, and the fact that it's happening, it's really kind of crazy, isn't it? It's a shock that this is even happening. How the fuck did it get this far? I think the reason why it's gotten this far is because almost everything is based off of emotional reasoning now. And so the way something makes a person feel and the way something sounds is more important than what it is or what it actually is being communicated. Like, that's basically it. Like, it's literally feelings over facts. Yeah, it's completely emotionally charged rhetoric, and I think that so many people have been effectively co-opted by it that it's become massively pervasive.
Business owners of the opportunity to compete in a fair marketplace. Think about that. How do you open a legitimate restaurant or cafe next to one that's not playing by the rules and has lower labor costs than you do? Your prices are automatic.
This is a really good point he's bringing up. Is that like it also hurts legitimate businesses, because if this business is able to operate at a lower cost because they're breaking the rules, then the other business either has to lose business to that person or make less money or do something else illegal themselves. It fucks the whole system. Yeah. And this is what I think a lot of these people don't understand, is that the second and third order effects of this type of stuff is very dangerous and it's very problematic. And I think that a good example is what he just brought up about how other businesses now can't compete in the market because these other businesses are operating at a margin that is obtained through illegal labor.
because you pay more for labor than they do. And in a tough economy, whoever's got the lowest prices, they're the ones who are going to win and everybody else is going to lose. And if people are working at a place in an off-the-books manner, they're not benefiting either. Sure, they might have a job, but it exists in the shadows, and these people don't benefit from any of the worker protections, which exist to stop predatory businesses from harming their workers in the first place. And living in a country where the laws that protect others don't apply to you is not the American dream. Instead, it just means that you're being taken.
Well, it was before 1965. And that was kind of a bad thing, you know?
Advantage of.
Worksite enforcement's coming back. No one hires an illegal alien out of the goodness of their heart. They hire them because they work them hard to pay them unless they undercut the competition as U.S. citizen employees.
Exactly.
But most importantly, what do we
I love how these business owners, these like fucking, in a lot of cases, not with that one, but like in a lot of these cases, like these millionaire business owners are trying to make this emotional argument of, oh, we need to hire these people. We're trying to do it for out of the goodness of our heart. No, you're doing it to save money and you know it.
Most victims of trafficking? Work sites. They have to pay the cartels off. They force them in labor situations, overwork them, abuse them. So,
you know, this is something that many people have never considered. The fact that when ICE raids a business, they find trafficking victims, that totally goes against the narrative that ICE is going into these places and pulling out people who wish they were there and are the happiest they've ever been. Especially when they're only going to businesses based on tips about ongoing criminal activity and the presence of dangerous individuals. They're not going to places where the only thing possibly going wrong are that otherwise law-abiding people are working illegally. And in New York especially, the signs of trafficking are everywhere. Literally, if you go to the bus terminal, a location where many asylum seekers and recent immigrants first arrive, you'll see signs warning people about this. Which wouldn't
I wonder why that's there. What could possibly be the reason?
Be there if it wasn't a problem. And according to the Border Czar, when businesses do their hiring, they could be bringing people into their company are trafficking victims, and they might not even know it. Yet that person's entire paycheck ends up getting turned over to the criminals who forced them to take that job in the first place. And where might these criminals find their victims? Well, this report says they're being located in the very shelters that New York City opened to keep people safe. Shelters which are infested with gang members because as a sanctuary city, we don't do background checks, and police are banned from patrolling these places, which just...
How the fuck did this happen?
Allows the criminals who are smuggling weapons inside to become the de facto law and order standard, doing whatever they want to whoever they want, and nobody can stop them. However, these gangs, they're not just getting people jobs at little mom-and-pop restaurants or convenience stores, they're also helping people get jobs at corporate entities that may have no idea they've just hired somebody illegally.
Yeah, sure, that happens.
Being arrested repeatedly on the Mag Mile for retail theft, and once they were interviewed, they explained why.
They were then being able to either buy or trade for Social Security numbers, cards, or American permanent residency cards.
See, this is kind of the issue, is that, like, you let people in illegally, and there's, like, a cascade of other illegal activities, like identity theft and other types of fraud, that happen as a necessity to a person living in the country illegally. And so it's not like somebody just comes over here and they're just here and that's it. There's always, like, all of these knock-on effects that happen like this.
And this story we were getting over and over again.
This is what the migrants were bartering for, fake ID.
So this story is from a Fox affiliate in Chicago, but this same thing is taking place right here in New York. And fake IDs are being sold openly on our streets by gang members, which should be expected in a place that allows massive numbers of people in the country unlawfully to stay here. They're gonna need a way to provide for themselves, and that creates a marketplace for false identification. And where are people getting the money to buy their fake IDs? Well, according to this news report, they shoplift and steal and commit crime, which is such a problem.
It's just like we have a city where we don't arrest people for coming here illegally, and they're stealing people's identities. They're working jobs under the table. They're making money by stealing stuff out of stores and then selling it on the street. What the fuck is going on? There's a reason, there's a reason why Gotham City's based on New York.
New York, that our state is home to a $4.4 billion shoplifting economy, and when you walk through a store in the city, you'll see most products behind plexiglass. And although this is the obvious result of decriminalizing thefts that are non-violent and
dude, this is...
$1,000 in value. This type of arrangement allows low-level petty thieves to do this as a full-time job, which is why you have so many open-air theft markets throughout the city where people are just reselling stolen goods on a sidewalk somewhere. But even if a person steals just long enough to get a fake ID so they can work at Amazon or Uber or Target or any business that actually checks, they're gonna need a real ID and a valid social security number. And the way these criminal gangs help people get an ID like that threatens every single person in our entire country.
It's crazy how stupid people are that they couldn't see this happening. It's actually shocking to me that this obvious effect is somehow completely, like, just incomprehensible. It's by design. You think it's by design? I think that you put too much faith in the system. I think the fact is that it's just a massive amount of emotional reasoning and stupid people doing the thing that makes them feel good. That's what I think it is.
World a favor, but it's quite another for that person to get a job at a legitimate looking place like this Subway where they check. But in a city with over 400,000 people who aren't supposed to be here needing employment, that's gonna have to happen if everybody wants to work. And because of that, you have a new victim entering the equation when it comes to unlawful employment. And that victim is anyone who has legal work authorization in this country.
This is what the migrants were bartering for, fake IDs, in order to secure employment.
And then the vast majority of them are released.
Nearly 500 fake IDs were uncovered, social security cards, driver's licenses, and American permanent...
So you gotta wonder, where does a gang like this get hundreds of fake IDs? They've got stacks of them and they're all for sale. Now, of course, the IDs could all be bogus, but it's not gonna be good for business if word gets around that they don't help people get jobs. Which means if somebody puts the information on that ID through some sort of database that checks to see if people can actually get jobs, there can't be any errors, which means some of the IDs floating around out there got into the hands of criminals in an illegitimate manner. Now, the way for criminals to get their first few IDs that they sell are to have themselves, friends, or family members recreate a legitimate ID and then sell those IDs to people who kind of look like whoever's on the picture. But that's not going to work forever. And the fact that there's demand for these things should terrify everyone who's ever been involved in some sort of data breach. If your identity or personal documents have ever leaked, a more sophisticated criminal could use that information to recreate your ID with someone else's picture on it, and then they could sell it an unlimited number of times to an unlimited number of people. This article says a legit driver's license will go for $500. The New York Post found gang members in Queens selling IDs from $80 to $250, some of which were obviously bogus. But what this reveals is
there's a, this is what's crazy about it, is there's like there's a massive economy that comes out of this. What's the end game for Democrats with all this? I think that for a lot of them, there isn't really an end game. Like, so it depends on like who you're asking. I think that for business owners, which is not, I mean, this is not a political, I mean, I don't think that there's like, you know, like taking like political sides out of it. I think for business owners, the end game is cheap labor and more money. For the people voting on it, the end game is feeling good and knowing that you're better than the people that you disagree with, and the people who you disagree with are racist and evil. And then I think for the politicians, the reason is that they're betting that the people that are going to come over will have some degree of thankfulness and will actually vote for them in the future. So I think you put all of these together, and if you can figure out what the incentive is, you can figure out why something is happening. I think that's the reason.
Even at my dry cleaner, you know, I went the other day and there was nobody there. And she said, well, I let my employees go down to the protest in Newark. She said, and then she asked me, do you think this is good for the small business community? And I went, well, look at your shop. This is one day. What happens when your employees just don't come in, people?
So here's what's going to happen. That
I don't even, what do you even, because they went to a protest? Yeah, you don't have any, number one, the entire premise of this is bullshit because they went to a protest. You let them go. It's like every part of this is stupid.
Minimum wage in New York is $16.50 an hour, and ask any progressive, they'll tell you that's too low. And they'll tell you that greedy businesses should be paying more because
You know what's funny is that I think that they're right. I think $16 an hour probably is too low in New York. And I bet you might not be able to make a living working 40 hours a week at $16 an hour. If you're working 40 hours a week and you can't afford an apartment or a place to live on that money, then the minimum wage needs to go up. Because if it doesn't go up, you have an untenable situation in the long term.
Workers are the most valuable input in any economy. Unless, of course, those workers are in the country illegally. If that's the case, there is nobody advocating for them to get higher wages or more protections. There's just anger at the fact that ICE is here and might arrest somebody who's a criminal. And this puts progressives in sanctuary cities in a catch-22. Here they are advocating for policies that disenfranchise workers who they say are already disenfranchised by virtue of their immigration status.
And these people don't care about anybody, any workers or anything like that. They just care about having the right opinion. That's it. Yeah, it's all optics and virtue signaling. That's it.
Awful workers, they don't have the one thing legitimate workers have, which protects them. And that is the power to walk.
Here's the way that I look at it. You can say, you can tell the employee to get a better job. But have you ever thought about telling the employer to get a better job? Like if you have a function that you can't even justify paying somebody a living wage for, maybe that's your fault as an employer. That's just me.
Away from any business they feel isn't treating them fairly and work somewhere else. That's not possible if the only job you can get is because the people working there are willing to break the law. And this brings up a big question. Are the businesses who are hiring people illegally doing something good? Or are they just doing something that's good for their bottom line at the expense of the rest of society? And does that empower the very criminals and gang members ICE may have to raid a business to find in the first place? Let me know what you think about that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
I love these fucking videos. I think this guy's amazing. I'm so glad that he's calling this out, and I totally support Cash Jordan. I've watched like probably 10 of his videos before. Good video. Yeah, he's so good. And I really think, like, I mean, he's doing the Lord's work, right? I mean, like, it's crazy how bad this shit's gotten. I'm actually really kind of shocked. And, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with this.